Okay, hello. You're not going to see my face in this tutorial, but I'm going to change out this outlet for you guys. I did already shut off the power in the basement, but just to be sure, I'm going to test it with a voltage detector. And it is definitely off, so it is safe to work. All right, first thing you need to do is you need to take off the cover plate, which is just a matter of unscrewing one screw and then pulling it off. I'm going to reuse this because I ran out of the new ones. But if you're not going to reuse it, you can just throw it away. Next, you're going to remove these two screws, which are what holds the outlet into the wall. Again, it's just two screws. These are flathead screws, but the ones on the newer outlets that I'm putting in will actually be Phillips head. But you just take these right out. So one of the things I do actually have is I have a double-sided drill bit in my drill. It's not normally meant to be used with a power drill. It's meant to be used on just a manual screwdriver, but it works pretty well for these types of things. It just speeds it up a bit because these are pretty long screws. All right, so I'm just going to remove these with a flathead. Okay, so now the outlet is away from the box, which is recessed into the wall. You can see these are the holes that the screws came out of. And then you can see how it's wired. So for outlets, you've got, for this outlet, the standard 2-plug outlet, you've got 5 wires. This one is the ground wire. It looks painted white here. That's, I think, just because there was overspray from painting, but normally it's copper. You can see a little bit of that right here. It's copper. That's the ground wire, and it goes to this screw for the ground. And then you have these 2 sets of wires. So there's one white and one black wire for each plug. So there's one white and one black up on the top, and then there's one white and one black behind the bottom outlet. The black is, generally speaking, the live wire, and the white is usually the neutral wire. So one thing you'll notice is on the outlet, the white wires typically go on the side with the screws that are silver, and the black wires typically go on the side where the screws are brass or a gold color. And that's the way it is in my house. Your house might be different, but that is relatively standard, and that's the way it is here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of these wires off, and then I'm going to put all of the wires on the new outlet. If you have not done this before, you can take one wire off at a time and just position it on the new outlet where it matches up, because it's fairly easy to see how to put it in on the new outlet, because it goes in the same spot. Generally, the ground screw is in a little different spot, but overall it's the same. So I'm just going to take everything off, and then we'll put everything back on. Actually, I'm sorry, I forgot. I'm going to just snip this. This was hard to get out before. I'm just going to snip each of the wires off, and I will strip them and use a new section of wire for the new outlet. So just so I don't have to try to remember which wires go to the bottom outlet and which one goes to the top, and also just so I don't have to figure it out, I'll just separate them. The top 2 are the ones that go to the top outlet and the top outlet plug, and the bottom 2 are for the bottom. You actually can know just by looking for the cable they came out of back in the box, but it's just easier for me to do it this way. Okay, so this is the ground. So I'm going to start by stripping off about 1/2 inch off of each of the wires. this appears to be 14 gauge wire, so I'm just putting it in the little notch on my wire strippers that says 14. Then you kind of twirl it a little bit and then pull the cover off of the wire. That reveals just the copper wire. And again for the bottom two. So now we are ready to put all these parts into the new outlet. So here's my new outlet. You can see it just has places for 2 plugs. These are the screws that are going to screw ultimately into the cover, into the recessed box. This side is for the black wires. Again, it's gold or brass, and that's generally meant to be for the brass, for the hot wire. And then the silver side is generally for the neutral wire or the white. So here we go. Oh, it's really neat actually. These have little holes. You would just push the wires in and then you tighten it down a bit with the screws to kind of hold it in there. So it's so simple. Just goes right in, and then you take your screwdriver and just tighten it up a bit. I'm not sure that's actually necessary, but it's not going to hurt, so I figured I'd better do it. Tightening the screws is actually something that is necessary when I've changed out GFCI outlets. I'm not sure that you need to do it for a standard outlet, but it's not going to hurt anything, so I figure why not do it. So I'm now attaching the 2 wires for the bottom plug. The black one's in. Now I'm just pushing this last one in, the white. It's very simple. You just position it in the hole and then give it a push and then tighten the screw up with your screwdriver. So all 4 wires are now in the back of this outlet. I just need to do the ground wire. On newer outlets, I've noticed that the screw that you have to put the ground on is like a green or a blue, and that, again, this is the copper wire. Usually there's just one. There actually are 2 ground wires coming out of each of the cables that house these 2 wires, the black and white wire, but apparently code is you have to do this thing called a pigtail, where you wrap the 2 wires together and put a single wire extension before you connect it to your ground screw. That's not something that I did, that's just the way it came in the house. I just know how to do this part, but apparently it's a thing. All right. The last screw, just tighten this down. Okay, so nice and tight. So it's all done, it's assembled, it's in there. It's changed, the outlet's changed out, but you need to push all these wires back into this outlet box, which can be tough, but just use a little muscle power and get it in there. And then you're going to screw the top and bottom screw into the box. I'm just going to start it with the manual screwdriver and then finish it with the drill, the screwdriver bit rather, just because it's easier. And again, this is a double-sided drill bit, not meant for power drills, but it works fine for this thing, this purpose. You can actually use a level and level this out, make sure it's plumb and level, but I need to change the switch cover out, this outlet cover out later when I get a new one. So I'm just aiming to get it safe right now, not perfect. And so I'm just going to screw this old one back on. Doesn't look as pretty as it would if I had a new switch cover, but it certainly looks a lot better than it did before. And there you have it. That's it. I'm gonna go turn the power on downstairs in the basement and test it and make sure it works.